Welcome to Be Hero Fights. I'm Tom.
I'm Brian.
And we are here to discuss
Or Fuss.
over two hotly debated, highly related topics.
Last week, we had a great set of debates dealing with the casting of a new Street Fighter movie that we came up with.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun, and I would like to do other casting like that in the future. Let us know here in the comments what you guys think.
Yeah, if you like that episode and you want to see more like that, I think the second time we've done anything like that, right?
Correct. Yeah, we did the fantasy football one once before in this.
Yeah, so if you guys liked the fantasy casting and want to try other fantasy castings or other things of that nature, let us know. We want to hear from you. Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia, Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia.
On Twitter at BeHeroFights or BeHeroMedia. Of course, you can drop a comment right in here on YouTube and everything that is BeHeroMedia at BeHeroMedia.com, including our merch.
That is right. Real quick, just want to point out today we are drinking Lafroig. It's an Islay single malt Scotch whiskey aged 10 years. So good. And cheers, my man. That's good. As you guys know, honestly, we're drinking in almost every episode anyway. Yeah. We just figured, why not tell you guys what we're drinking? We're not sponsored by any of these companies. We're not getting any money off of it. Obviously, drink responsibly. We're just having a good time, and we want to let you know what the drink of choice is today. And today it is Lafroig. Great, very peaty Scotch, and I'm a fan.
I agree. So. I'm a fan of it. And it kind of ties in well for the episode we're going with, I think. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm watching a fantastic horror movie, I want a good Scotch or whiskey to drink with me.
Yep.
And today's episode that we're doing is who is the more influential horror director?
Yeah, so we'll be discussing two wonderful gentlemen that gave us some of the most iconic films and stories and franchises that we have in horror today. May they both rest in peace. We are going to be discussing George A. Romero versus
Wes Craven.
That's right. And, not long ago, actually, well, it's probably been a couple months at this point, but we did pose this question on the social medias to our fans and followers. And we did get some responses from you guys. So we wanted to kind of go over that. First of all, Aaron says, I have to go with George on this one. He is the father of horror films, the father of zombies, making them the cult classics they are. Granted, I have only seen a fraction of both of their films. Actually, totally understandable. George A. Romero is definitely responsible for the modern take on zombies.
Yep.
Directly responsible.
Yes.
And that has definitely been one of the big influences shaping horror as we know it. So definitely no argument there.
Yep, very much so. All right, then next is the Victo, and he says, or she says, Wes Craven, 6 words, The Last House on the Left, which is a fantastic horror movie. It's one that most people don't think of off the top of their head when they think Wes Craven, because you got Nightmare on Elm Street, you've got Scream. So many great ones that he's done.
Yeah, he's done some phenomenal stuff. But The Last House on the Left is definitely very dark.
Yes.
No punches pulled on that one, and I think that one, at least the ones that I've just seen, that one's probably the most disturbing.
Well, it definitely goes into a conversation that
which we don't need to go too deep into.
Yeah. We wouldn't get demonetized for going into that conversation. Yeah. But the movie itself is good, but it definitely has multiple trigger warnings, so be careful when you go to watch it.
Yes.
So.
Exactly. James says, I would say George A. Romero. I don't blame you.
Yeah, again, always a good choice. It's why he's one of the best and most famous out there for horror movie directors.
Yep.
So, And then lastly, we have Brent Rubin, who says, Craven, without a doubt. Not knocking George, but Craven had such a diverse resume, it's hard to compete with him. And he's just not wrong. There's very few directors anywhere, let alone in horror, that has done so many great movies, so influential movies that Wes Craven has done.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're very excited to talk about this. Thank you guys so much for the comments, and keep commenting. Follow us on the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's where we pose these questions and these mini debates, and where we try to get involved with you guys. So,
and don't forget to join us on our Discord as well. We share Discord with Showboys, which you can see here in the comments. Or in the description, excuse me. We also pose questions on there all the time. Yep. And we often do reach out to you guys to see if any of you would like to be a guest judge on here through there. So join us on there. And then, of course, join the Showboys. They have great conversations and things on there as well.
Yeah. Showboys talk about everything. So it's really awesome. There's never a dull moment, so you can get involved with two wonderful podcasts in one great spot.
Yep.
Well, let's start diving into this a little bit. We talked briefly about this, but before starting, Brian, who are you going to debate for?
I'm going to go with the grandfather of zombies, man, George A. Romero.
I don't blame you. He's phenomenal, but Wes Craven, he has always been one of my biggest role models in cinema, and I am very excited to fight on his behalf. So I will be fighting for Wes Craven.
All right. Well, we're going to go back to our traditional layout. So we'll do a first round, second round, and final round.
Yep.
So if you guys have watched any of this or listened to any of this before, you know how that's going to go.
That's right. Seeing as you won the most arguments last week, let's have you go first.
All right. So let's go with
round one. Fight.
All right. So as everyone knows, George A. Romero, Greg has said before, grandfather of zombie movies, created the first, as we know it, zombie movie with Night of the Living Dead, and in fact, it wasn't directly zombies. They were never called zombies, they were actually called ghouls back then. But the subsequent movies that they have, from Dawn and Day and Land and Diary and Survival, all of those, all came from George. George had these plans in it, but he did something more than just a zombie movie or a horror movie. He told a underlying story about different things. Like Night of the Living Dead had bits with racism, and Dawn of the Dead had capitalism, and Day of the Dead had government stuff. Everyone that they did had something that was of the time, something political as an underlying tone, in addition to a fantastic horror movie. He was one of the first people to have a protagonist who was an African American in Night of the Living Dead. So George A. Romero,
that was in the 60s.
Yeah, so influential in everything that he did, and that was his first real movie. Was Night of the Living Dead. He had a short beforehand, but that was his first real movie right out of the gate. And it was so influential, but also so terrifying back then that they only had it in a few theaters, and it was literally, teenagers and young adults were going to see it to tick off their, parents from the 1950s.
Yeah.
Parents, because they were trying to be rebellious. Like, the government was even trying to put this movie out. So,
it almost got banned.
Yeah. George was able to do so much with so little. He's just an amazing director. I think the most influential. He created a genre of horror movie.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, and I love and adore George Romero. So I'm talking about Wes Craven. Wes Craven, for those that don't know, if you don't know, why are you here?
Right.
Wes Craven, definitely, arguably the only person that could keep up with George A. Romero for his influence in the horror genre. Wes Craven, of course, created Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. Freddy Krueger, everyone's favorite dream master, dream horror icon. I love Freddy Krueger and that entire franchise. He also created The Last House on the Left, which we talked about before. He created The Hills Have Eyes, another fantastic franchise that was, that one and Nightmare on Elm Street were so influential that they were both rebooted.
Yep.
And not only that, but he was also a very aware director. Everything they did was trying to challenge the collective conscience at the time, if you will. And so not only was he incredibly good at directing horror movies, but he was very, very critical of horror movies. And he created the meta genre of horror, starting with Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was a Freddy Krueger film.
Yep.
And then shortly thereafter, creating the Scream franchise, Scream 1, 2, 3, and 4. All of which are very, very intelligent critiques on horror as a whole, specific more into the slasher side of horror, but very intelligent critiques of horror. And definitely called out a lot of the trends and tropes and made people think about things in a different way. And that's one of the things that was so unique about him. He was not to get like religious or anything, but he was a deeply Christian person. He was very outspoken and thought-provoking, and he just wanted people to have a safe place to come together and overcome their fears in a communal environment. But he wanted to do so intelligently. And I don't think there's really no one else that has done anything quite like him.
Right on. Well, in case you guys didn't know, we are once again having Puppet Pat here to judge for us.
Hi, Puppet Pat.
Hi, look, new hat. That's for you, Brian.
Oh, he's gonna hate you.
All right. So, with Puppet Pat and his new hat, we're going to move on to the second round.
Can it be a Cat in the Hat?
We'll see what I put on. For Puppet Pat, you're welcome to stop us at any point in time in the second round to ask questions or push forward the conversation.
Round 2. Fight.
All right. So let's go with talking about George A. Romero again and why he is more influential than Wes Craven. I'm not going to say better because they're both great in what they've done.
Yes. There's no argument there. They are the pinnacle of their craft.
Agreed. Like when you think of some of the best horror directors, they're usually within the top 5 because they are both so amazing and so influential. But I think the reason why I went with George on this one over Wes, which was the other option I was thinking about going with, was largely because of what George did with so little. Wes Craven had several other films and things he started working on and directing beforehand. George started off a genre right out of the gate with the zombie movie. He is most known, like when you think of a zombie movie, your brain jumps to George A. Romero. But if you think of a slasher movie, you've got Wes Craven, you've got Alfred Hitchcock, you've got John Carpenter. You have several other names you can think of when you think slasher, and largely what Wes Craven has done are slasher movies. Save Last House on the Left, they've all been some variant of a slasher movie. And don't get me wrong, I agree. He has like created the concept of the meta horror, where they realize they're in a horror movie or they are doing things tangentially that go against the traditions of a horror movie. He has done fantastic with those. But George set the standard for what a horror movie, let alone a zombie movie, could really be. You can make a fantastic story with an underlining story and still be all kinds of gory. If you look at a lot of movies that came out around the same time that Night of the Living Dead, as well as Dawn of the Dead came out, a lot of the B movies, as they would call them, no association with us. You
should be though.
You saw a lot of just straight nothing but gore movies, especially in the 70s.
Yeah, grindhouse
movies. Yeah, they're just nothing but gore and stuff like that.
Frivolous.
But George A. Romero didn't need to do those. He was able to get both people who wanted to see a great story, but also wanted to see the gore from a grindhouse movie, and did that with his of the Living Dead movies that he did. And he was able to not only do that once, but he did that 6 times with all of his series. And they're all in that world that George created inside the mind of George. And I don't know if you knew this. They actually had side comic books that they did with Image. I think it was Image Comics or Vertigo, one of the two, that they did inside of the world of the Living Dead. It was called, I believe it's called The World of the Living Dead. Comic book run they did. That just told other side stories about the world that was in there that George influenced. George has influenced things outside of the movies. I mean, everything that's zombie as we know it now came from George. George is he's the grandfather of zombies. Like a traditional zombie back in the day, what they would think of before what George did with ghouls, zombies were voodoo, like Haitian voodoo slaves. Yeah. Mind slaves. And
which is based on actually real things. Go look it up.
Yeah. Go watch The Serpent in the River or Serpent in the Rainbow. Yeah. You kind of get an idea for that. But what George's changes did and everything else that he did with the zombie movie in general, and then finding out you can tell a compelling story in that theme of a zombie horror movie, it changed the game for everything. You might not be able to get to where we are now with horror movies in general without George being able to say that you can do a good story and a horror movie.
Well, I mean, you say that, and I would agree if you had said we wouldn't have zombie movies as we know them without George, and that is true. But the thing is, like you said, there were grindhouse movies, slashers were a thing. This was before George Romero and continued after. So this argument actually kind of reminds me of when we did the Metallica versus Slayer, and how my point was like, hey, Slayer stuck to their guns. They hit the political agenda, and they through their entire career made a point and stuck to it, whereas Metallica was able to change and adapt and grow in a sense. Not that I'm saying that George Romero didn't grow, but they were able to pivot and adapt. And that's what I think is kind of similar about this is George Romero really, like, yes, he has more than obviously that franchise of zombies. He did Creepshow, another fantastic franchise. But he definitely is known for his political agenda, which was very influential and very important to modern culture, American culture, world culture. Yep. And definitely can't knock that. But again, he was very one note. Wes Craven was able to pivot. Wes Craven has a much broader, diverse variety of films. Like he was even able to make like thrillers, like Red Eye. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
It's a great movie. Definitely takes the elements of horror, but very grounded, very real world. And he did that in a time where terrorism was like on the mind of everyone. Very intelligently so. So again, we have someone who is able to take the current events in the time, much like George Romero, but allowing it to be a little bit more abstract so that people can draw their own conclusions, their own interpretations from it. And I think that's one of the genius things that he was so good at. While also he created the new genre of critiquing horror through meta, and that has been drawn upon in other genres. Movies that are very self-aware. Like he really started that trend or popularized it anyway. So I think with that, like he still has been just as political. Like the Hills Have Eyes being. People that were mutated through nuclear testing. Yeah. That's very obviously a political statement that's going on there, and he does it so well. His craft is so intelligent. So I think the fact that not only was he able to take an existing slasher genre and make it relevant to people, but also create a new genre that can be aware and critique the shortcomings of what is currently trending in the genre. I think that makes him the more influential person.
Well, again, as you said, he went against Wes Craven, being he, made a change to the genre he was in. He was more political, which I would agree with you on both. But George created something out of nothing when it came to the zombie genre. He also influenced how almost all movies are done since then, with how they do with gore and everything else. Because they were showing that it doesn't need to be all about gore or all about story. You can have a blend of both. Wes Craven, you said that George is one note, and he fairly is with zombies, but Creepshow is such a huge departure from that, from the zombies world, where Wes Craven is almost every Wes Craven story, even with Red Eye, is some form of soul, generally wholesome woman being attacked by some guy. Okay? Mind you, that's a large majority of horror movies, but that's also all Wes Craven movies. There's no change. Where you have...
At least he was aware enough to call himself out on it, though.
Okay.
With Scream. He does. He calls himself out.
Yeah, that's like Barry Bonds saying, "Oh yeah, I totally was doing those things." Isn't that freaking hilarious?
Come on.
Okay. So Wes Craven, as amazing as he is, he's don't get me wrong, both these guys are amazing. You can't really knock either. So it's kind of hard to argue one over the other. But I think when we think most influential, it's a mixture of who has done more and who was done first. And George did more by creating a whole new genre. In fact, zombie movies have genres in the genre. Now, you can even get to saying that there are shared genres of zombie movies with other things. I mean, look at comics. Marvel zombies. Or Deceased, with DC doing their zombie run just recently. All because of George. Right? And that's expanding outside of movies. George also did it first. George did it in the 60s. And he did it right out of the gate with his first movie.
I mean, the only problem I have with that argument is, like, it's assuming a lot. That would be like me assuming that Marvel decided to make Deadpool able to break the fourth wall and be meta because Wes Craven did that in Scream. Like, that is a stretch of an assumption, right? Would you agree that the Deadpool coming from Scream?
No, to be fair,
it's a stretch.
I would say more of Deadpool with Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because that's more canon to fourth wall breaking. And he didn't create the zombie as we know it. Like, he didn't create the fourth wall breaking.
But again, the zombie as we know it was a ghoul. It was just rebranded. So yes, like, he rebranded ghouls to zombies and started that. But what Wes Craven did, like,
well, Wes Craven,
you say the name Freddy Krueger, and 5-year-olds that don't even know what horror is know who Freddy Krueger is. My kids know who Freddy Krueger is, and I didn't even tell them. I did. I might have.
That's what I thought.
Seriously, everyone knows Freddy Krueger. Like, he is arguably, Freddy and Jason are easily the two most iconic. Jason not being relevant to this argument, but, like, he created one of the two most iconic horror entities known.
See, you can't say that with horror entities, because I would say zombies are in there as much as anything else, and that's solely George.
It's not solely George, though.
No, it is, for the sheer fact that ghouls, if you look up the literature, ghouls, like, if you get bit by a ghoul, you don't turn into a ghoul. Okay? They just eat you. But zombies, being bit by a zombie and becoming a zombie is a George idea, which everybody does now in zombie movies.
I mean, okay, so this is maybe not related, but zombies are kind of a stupid idea. They're not scary.
There are bees. Zombies are bees. By themselves, a single zombie you can take out. They're not terribly terrifying. You can even run away from it. Their power is by their horde, like a bee.
Okay, fine. But zombies will eventually rot. But also, their way of propagation is by biting people.
Correct.
Right? But the reason they bite people is because they're hungry, right?
Correct.
So if they bite someone, they're going to eat them.
Attempt to, yes.
No zombie.
But when they die, they still come back. And in fact,
that's what I was gonna say is, like, I don't know that George Romero, and internet, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least with Night of the Living Dead, and I've only seen that one and Dawn of the Dead. I don't think it had anything to do with biting in those two. I think it was once you are dead, you come back.
Correct.
So the bite had nothing to do with it. Now,
in
maybe
the first
he
two
did.
movies, they did in the Day of the Dead when they go into the military base. They have a head in there, and one of the heads bite the doctor and turns him into a zombie inside the base.
But did he come up with that idea? Day of the Dead. When did that come out?
70 something.
Is
maybe
that the
80
one where they
85.
have that lady who's running around naked the entire show?
I hope so.
Probably. It's
I
an
have no
80s
idea.
horror movie.
Like, and
I
then
guess-
she complains about her skin burning, and she puts on that shirt.
I don't remember.
How can you not?
I feel like it would probably take too long for the sake of the arguments, on this episode, for me to like actually look up who invented biting being the transferal of it. Maybe it was him in that movie. Maybe it wasn't, though. And that's the thing, is like, I don't know. Do you actually know? Can you confirm right now without a shadow of a doubt that George A. Romero came up with the biting, like zombifying through a bite?
I cannot say for sure that it was him. From my personal experience, the first time I know of any of that ever happening was from Day of the Dead, and it was specifically that scene I was talking about where one of the doctors gets turned after the zombie head which they were experimenting on bites him in the hand. That's the first time I know of that happening, and I believe that is the first time. I mean, I could be wrong, so please let us know. But I'm pretty sure that's either well known as the first time or it's well assumed as the first time.
I'm just curious. When did Evil Dead 1 come out? Because that one also... Because Evil Dead 2 was 87.
But the Deadites.
Yeah, the Deadites, which are a variant of zombie. Oh my god! The volume is on my computer. What the heck? IMDb, I said Evil Dead. Look it up. 81. No, yeah, right there. 81. That's before. That's 4 years before your reference from George Romero. And it's possible that Sam Raimi created
I guess it
the
is
modern day
possible,
zombie.
but
So-
as I understood it,
Okay.
that's how it was. Is George created for the zombies, as that was the part of it. And I don't remember. I don't remember it from the Day of the Dead. I do remember the random baby being born, the zombie from the Day of the Dead,
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead, which was odd.
Admittedly, I've only seen Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Don't hate me.
I don't remember if they had it in the original one or not, though. I feel like they did now that I think about it, because they have the guy who stays back after getting bitten, while the others run off. So maybe it is that one I'm thinking. But
Internet,
nevertheless,
correct us, help us. Let's move on from that.
he
point.
created a majority of the knowledge we know about zombies. Okay, that is solely zombies outside of the ghouls.
I would say that he opened a public domain open source network, like a Linux system of zombies, if you will. We're nerds. So I think, yes, he might have started it, but again, I think we're crediting a lot of things that kind of came to the genre that we know of now to him when he just opened the door. He created this public domain source for what we now know as zombies. Whereas again, Wes Craven, you can look at things like with just the concept of critiquing and being aware. Look at Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah,
that is very clearly inspired by Wes Craven's work. Obviously, Sam Raimi, it's inspired by a lot of things, but the entire point of that is to critique the current tropes and trends that are going on in horror.
Which also has zombies and also has Clive Barker's Pinhead.
Absolutely. It's all encompassing. But I think by Wes Craven was very on the nose with it, right?
Wes Craven didn't do Cabin in the Woods, though.
I know.
Okay.
I'm talking about Scream.
Okay.
Wes Craven was very on the nose with how he critiqued things with Scream. But I think that inspired people to be able to blend that in and be like, hey, look how ridiculous this is. We're still going to tell a good story, but we're going to, we make Cabin in the Woods. We're going to tell a good story, but we're also going to call everyone out on their crap.
Yeah, and I can see that again. But going back to being influential, one of the most things about being influential is learning from and copying some of the stuff that someone's done. And you mentioned earlier Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder did a remake of Dawn of the Dead. He also did Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, and Army of the Dead. And then they're making a prequel to Army of the Dead now with one of the characters from Army of the Dead. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was like Before the Dead or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
But these are all things that are being done, influenced by George A. Romero.
I mean, first of all, Wes Craven did Swamp Thing. So he also crossed into DC in comic books and was able to bring in the horror elements to one of the greatest campy DC movies ever made. But if you want to take that argument of just like, oh yeah, someone remade it, so it's influential. Yeah, well, people have remade the Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, they've done one-offs on all of them. And Zach has been able to make several movies off of George.
Has he? Are you sure?
That's what I have to say about
Zack
Zack Snyder.
One director, though, like, lots of directors have pulled. One director has remade George Romero. Many have pulled from Wes Craven and remade his work.
Well, and you can look at the other one. So there's what was the name of the movie? There's like a couple of ones that are very similar to Night of the Living Dead. And I can't remember what they're called, but there was like a trio of them that came out shortly after. There was a ton of movies that were influenced by George's that were all zombie movies in that same vein. And I mean, like I said, there's a whole zombie genre now of everything.
Yeah, Zack Snyder only did Dawn of the Dead. Army of the Dead is not as I
guess it's produced by him. They were touting on Netflix.
But what I was going to say is Army of the Dead isn't part of the universe.
It's the same universe as Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead.
Is it?
Yeah.
But that's his own creation.
Well, that's
not a George.
That's
Romero.
what I'm saying. He sequeled it. So he did Day of the Dead, and I thought he did he did Dawn of the Dead, and I thought he did Day of the Dead.
I don't.
But then he did like a Land of the Dead. He did one in between these two.
Nope. It's just Dawn of the Dead and Army of the Dead. The only
So George Romero?
I'm looking at his directing credits. No, I'm looking at Zack Snyder.
There was a Land of the Dead as well, I thought.
Let me see. I'll check his producing credits. Nope.
Oh, all right. Anyhow.
Yeah, you're wrong, bud.
I'm not wrong, but it might not have been Zack Snyder. But because it's the one that has freaking he played Luigi in the Mario movie. My brain just turned off his name. John Leguizamo. Had John Leguizamo in it.
That's the reference you choose to talk about John Leguizamo?
Now I gotta look this up. This is the most Googling, IMDbing episode.
No, I do
ever
remember
had.
John Leguizamo in a zombie movie.
Yeah, I want to say it was I think it was Land of the Dead.
John, what is his name?
Leguizamo.
John
Leguizamo.
You don't know who that is?
No, not off the top of my head. Oh yeah, I do.
He's the clown in Spawn, dude.
No, yeah, it took a second. Shut up. I know who he is, but not from that. Okay, let's see. What is he in? This is audience. I'm sorry, you're probably bored out of your mind.
Here's
early
the
2000s.
thing. This is a momentous occasion that I know the name of an actor that that Tom didn't know.
I don't know the name of anything. He was in Land of the Dead in 2005.
I knew it. I knew there was a Land of the Dead.
Hold on. I know there's a Land of... But guess who directed it?
It's George.
Yeah, George. There's only been one person to remake George's work. Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
And
this is
yes,
not a good.
And yes, Creepshow has been rebooted by Shudder. So to that,
I think it's a series now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is not a good line of argument to go down, because one thing that I absolutely despise is that people in Hollywood cannot come up with their own freaking ideas.
But we're talking about influential.
Yeah, which in this case, this is one of those times where it's a good thing because they're influencing others. Which again, George has done well. Wes Craven has done as well. Well,
didn't we have a conversation about being technically correct?
Audience, you weren't here for that.
Well, sure. Do you have a question before we move on to the final round?
No.
Okay.
No, not really.
All right. So, unless you got anything else,
No, I think we're ready. Let's go to the final round.
final thoughts then.
Final round. Fight.
I'm just gonna make it simple. George pretty much created a genre of everything where he came with zombies. Zombies are able to be a genre of movies, video games, comic books, books, everything. And that's almost solely to George being the creator of that with his first movie out. He's the one that helped influence, if not create, a lot of the concepts that came with what zombies are.
Yeah, and while I understand that he created the space for zombies as we know them now, and also created Creepshow as a franchise, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Wes Craven has more franchises under his belt. He is heralded by everyone.
So is George.
Any of his, he's more known though. Again, Freddy Krueger is just as ubiquitous of a horror icon as zombies. And that's his genius. But again, he also created the self-aware meta franchise as we know it today with Scream, with A New Nightmare. So I think his influence, he's got more work. I don't think that makes you more influential, but you know, I think his influence spans, he was just as aware of the political narrative and times as George Romero. And so I think both of them are kind of a wash on that. George Romero, he created the space for zombies, but on top of that, Wes Craven created the space for the meta self-aware. And on top of that, he created Freddy Krueger.
All right. Well, it's time for Puppet Pat to decide which one was more influential.
Well, so...
Or ask questions to help his case.
That was for round 2. He doesn't get questions
Oh,
now.
you can ask questions.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I was going to give it to Tom, but now, to hell with him.
Hey, now!
No, I think I am going to give it to Tom, and the reason is, like, so George Romero, I think you're right, he created the space for zombies, but as I was sitting here thinking, I don't think that he's the one that created the sensation that it is today. I think that it didn't really become like this thing that permeates every aspect of culture until things like, I don't know, Resident Evil came out, right? That's when zombies became the thing in society. But every person who's ever watched a horror movie knows exactly who Freddy Krueger is. And that's not due to anything but Wes Craven himself. George Romero opened the space up, but I think it's other media that filled in that space that he created. Now, can you say that that's him being influential? I don't know. Groundbreaking, I would say. Influential? I think Wes Craven is more along the influential lines in creating both some creating both the space for it to grow into something out of his control, but also the character himself, Freddy Krueger, is iconic, and him introducing the the fourth wall breaking stuff into horror movies, I think that's become another trope. I mean, some of my favorite horror movies are the ones that do break the fourth wall, and that's definitely not a George Romero thing. That's definitely a Wes Craven thing. I mean, like Cabin in the Woods, not really much of a horror movie, but it became possible because of, you know, breaking the fourth wall to some extent.
I'm just going to put it out there, by the way. Ferris Bueller's Stay Off did it first before Wes Craven did, but go ahead.
We're talking about horror movies.
Minus 2 points.
All right. Well, guys, let us know what you guys think. If you guys disagree with Pat, like you should, let us know and tell us right here in the comments, or hit us up on our social media, such as
Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia, as well as Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia.
Everything that is Be Hero at BeHeroMedia.com, including all of our merch, as well as on Twitter at Be Hero Media or Be Hero Fights. And then you can go right here into the comments on YouTube. And while you're there, hit that like button to help us out with the algorithm so we can be seen to more people. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the little bell notification so you know when we come on with either Be Hero Fights, our B reviews, or retro reviews, as well as anytime we come on with our live stream of Hero Plays.
Exactly. Thanks so much, as always, for watching, guys. We really appreciate you. Share with your friends. That goes a long way. It costs you nothing, and we just want to entertain people. So help us get the word out.
That's right. And before we leave, let's just go ahead and talk over our sponsor once again, is Riverside FM. These guys have been helping us out a great ton over the last couple of months. It's how we've been being able to keep doing this podcast when we weren't able to see each other. And it works out so well with doing so. If you do not have all of the hardware you need, like we do, to be able to run a podcast, you can get all of that by just going to a simple browser. You go to Riverside FM, and they will, at that point, all you'll need is some kind of mic and a camera, and they will help you out with everything else. You stream right to any of the major ones like YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, anything, Twitter. They have options for all of those. They also have the ability of you recording and saving it without streaming it onto their platform, so you don't have to worry about having a great computer to manage all of that. You can edit on there and then post later with that stuff. They also have a soundboard, so you can put all your own music and videos and everything else up there as well, and add that in to your stuff. Riverside FM, they are fantastic and been a great sponsor for us. Go ahead and hit that link right inside of the description here to help us out here and start doing your own podcast with Riverside FM.
All right, guys. Thanks again. We've had so much fun. If you want to get involved, we want to get you involved. Hit us up in our social medias. Join us on the Discord with the Show Boys. We're always talking. We host pictures of cosplay. We put our reviews up there. That is definitely the place where you can get the most up-to-date information. Everything that we do goes to Discord. And then we kind of divvy it up between the other social medias.
That's right. So, guys, if there's nothing else... All right. Father Pat?
Nothing.
All right. Side tangent real quick before I go to the ending. Last time Robert Englund played Freddy Krueger.
Would have been Freddy vs. Jason.
Nope. He was on an episode of The Goldbergs as Freddy Krueger. This last season. All right, guys.
Touche.
Again, you're technically correct.
As always, fight on. Let's catch you guys next week.